This episode was brought to you by Bookout Blooms. Bookout Blooms sells cut, flowers, and designs. They're located in South End, Charlotte. They have beautiful flower arrangements for any occasion you can think of. They even have classes where you and a group of girlfriends can come and learn to make your own bouquets. So, head on over to www.bookoutblooms.com to learn more information. And if you stop by the shop, tell them that those other girls sent you. Hello, everyone. You're listening to Those Other Girls with Mallory and Friends. I'm Mallory.
I'm Victoria.
And we are changing culture and bringing back traditional values. Okay, you guys, today we have a special guest, my friend Hannah Jones, the political activist. And as it is Women's Month, we wanted to talk about women-related topics. And today we are actually going to be talking about biblical womanhood. I'm really excited for this. Hannah, I don't want to say she's an expert, but she has some really good knowledge. But without further ado, Hannah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. So I live in North Dallas. I am a recent Texas resident, though. I just moved here from California, so I'm exploring and learning all about the greatest state in the union. I am involved with the Young Republicans, so I do a lot of work with them, just in local grassroots organizations, and I'm really passionate about equipping Christian women to fulfill, glorifying God and enjoying Him forever.
Awesome.
That's great.
So what's your favorite part about Texas so far?
All of the things that you're allowed to do here that you're not allowed to do in California.
That's what I've noticed that a lot of because a lot of influencers just leave in California and go to Texas. I go, you better vote Republican.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what everyone says to me. Like when I first moved here, everyone was like, you're gonna vote Republican, right? And I'm like, gosh, people yes, but I also want to do other things.
Well, I'm wondering if those influencers are going to vote Republican, because I think they have seen the acts of California, how California affected their businesses. I just pray to God they vote Republican.
Here's the thing. I don't know if they think that it's politically motivated. I don't know if people will put two and two together that your politics are going to affect your everyday life. Because when people think politics, they think big government or federal level. And the reality is, no matter how much we whine and complain about the president isn't affecting our everyday life. It's the local government. Everyone be involved in your local government. And anyway, so it's your local government. And I don't know if they're going to put two and two together. The average person, I don't think does. I hope so, but I don't know.
I think we've seen that more with COVID is wow, your governor really matters.
That's
comparatively to before, okay, a lot of the decisions seemed maybe, even if they weren't top down, but now we're seeing over in Florida, they have a lot more freedom, or in South Dakota, they're doing a lot. And no matter which way you fall, maybe you're really coronavirus conscious and you're that's crazy, wouldn't ever want to live there. Or you're no, that's fantastic, want to move to South Dakota.
Right.
You notice it more than I think we did a year ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I guess the first question is, how would you define biblical womanhood? That's a deep question, but
yeah,
because I have no idea.
Obviously, it's very broad, but I think that it would be using your gifts in a feminine way to glorify God, and using the gifts and the role that God's placed you in to be glorifying Him, and just living contently in your role as a woman, I think is a big part of it too. And not, we see a lot in culture of this buck up against the system, and, we want to do everything just like men. But I think when we realize how beautiful of a role God's given both men and women, that it's an exciting thing to be a woman. And it's not like, oh, and you're just a girl, so you get to do these other things and you can't do all the cool stuff.
Yeah, I think, and I agree with everything you said. And to like the last point you said, I think one problem, or like what's happening in culture now, is we're overcorrecting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think previously, for example, the idea that a woman couldn't have a bank account. Now, you know, our great grandparents, I'm sure there were arguments pro and against that, but like realistically in today's age, you know, for example, I'm 26 and I'm not married. Yeah. I need a bank account. You know, like I can't. I love my parents. I do love my dad, but I can't. Like, he can't be in control of me. That's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
So like, that is where things are today. And I think that what has happened is we've had some progress, some positive things. I do think it's a positive thing that women can vote. I do think it's positive we can have a bank account. I do think it's positive we can do things by ourselves, but we're overcorrecting. We're trying to be not equal to men anymore. Now it's trying to be like greater than men. And I think
absolutely.
that all of that encompasses, and it gets, when it comes to like biblical womanhood, like when we're trying to be a godly woman, it all seeps into that as well. Because you can't, if your belief is that you're greater than men, you can't walk in your biblical womanhood.
And I'll say too, it's like I categorize myself as a feminist, but I'm not and we've talked about this first.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we're not.
No, it's cool.
Like not like a 21st century feminist.
Right.
I am what a feminist is actually supposed to be, of just fighting for equal rights between men and women. Like I just want the right to pursuit of happiness. What is it? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
That's all I want. I mean, I am married. I want to be considered for a job not because I'm female, but because I'm the most qualified. I want to be paid the same as my male counterparts. I want to be able to get my own apartment, get my own credit cards and stuff like that. And that's what the 1970s feminists did. And other than abortion, but we talked about that too, that the whole point of abortion at the time was so women could work, because if they got pregnant, there was the right to get fired. And I think we have course corrected that to the point where women can work and have a family.
Yeah. And a little to your point though, I was reading in our blog that Steph is writing about the conservative women that don't get the due that they deserve during this month. And it was Susan B. Anthony, as well as, I can't remember the other,
Elizabeth Cady Stanton.
Okay, there you go. And they were both explicitly pro-life. Like they were, like the original feminists were pro-life. So yeah, I just wanted to add that into there. And yeah, I think it's a lot of it's just they're doing too much. I feel like that doesn't sound intelligent for me to say it. They're doing too much, but that's just exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah, and I think that is scaring a lot of more typical like middle America people that are just like, yeah, I just want to be paid and not fired because I'm pregnant, and I want, like, you know, that's all I really care about. Where then there's people that are like, yeah, but I want, you know, boys that are, you know, transitioning to girls to be able to play on girl sports teams. Well, you know, like that's where you're losing a lot of people.
Exactly. And I think that's also, I feel like that would be a good argument for people who like the patriarchy. I think that allowing men to be in a woman's space is an example of like men taking over. Like that's, I don't understand.
We've seen that for a little while now. I mean, Caitlyn Jenner was Woman of the Year.
Yeah.
Like if a man that, you know, becomes a woman in the first 6 months, they're man or they're Woman of the Year. So like a guy can dress up as a girl for 6 months and they're a better woman than like lots of great women in history that have done amazing things. And we're going to give like a man this award.
Yeah, that was crazy. I remember, I want to say, what grade was I in? It was around Pretty Little Liars toward the end, because I remember in Pretty Little Liars, and it made no sense whatsoever. And we're kind of going off topic, but it's all related, everybody. But in Pretty Little Liars, spoiler alert, they made Charlotte transgendered. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking, this makes no sense. Oh, did you know that, Victoria? Did you finish it?
I never watched Pretty Little Liars. We've been through this. I'm Gossip Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love Gossip Girl.
I'm so traumatized.
Al doesn't like it. I don't understand.
I tried the first, like, 2 or 3 episodes, and it's so boring to me.
Hannah, have you watched Bridgerton yet?
Yes.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm
Wait,
not gonna lie.
I haven't seen it yet.
I am on the 4th audio or book right now because I just can't stop.
Oh.
And it's like Gossip Girl in the 1800s, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. It's Pride and Prejudice meets Gossip Girl.
Yes.
It's good. What I do tell people is like, I fast forwarded through several moments, but it is a very like
They
it's
have
a
a
very
few
good
sexy
show.
scenes.
Okay, so it gets a little saucy.
It's quite saucy, but
Okay.
it is a very fun. Like, I think if you like Pride and Prejudice, you'll like Bridgerton. Like,
Okay.
you'll like that
So
kind of
good.
thing.
I need to. Okay, maybe
And
I'll
it's just
start
like
it
what? So it's
tomorrow.
like 8, like this family of like 8 kids, and like each season, which correlates with one book, goes through the kids like finding their love of their life, and like their kid being like out and trying like the whole courting and the season.
I know. I'm like, I want to be the diamond of the season. Like,
I'm gonna be the diamond of the season.
Oh, okay. Well, don't talk too much about it because I haven't seen it yet. But
So good. I think I'm on the
Anyway.
second time I'm watching it.
Anyway, so we were talking about Charlotte being transgendered. Why did we bring that up?
Well, because
'Cause-
Caitlyn Jenner was Woman of the Year after being a woman for 8 months.
Yeah, and then you're right, and it seeped into other aspects because Charlotte being transgender made no sense to the plot. I mean, they tried to put it together, but it was sloppy and a huge Pretty Little Liars
that's
fan, so I was
interesting.
insulted.
Sorry, that's an interesting point because they did the same thing in Glee, which
Yes,
the
I was just
woman that
thinking about
was
that.
the first female football coach transitioned to a man.
I did not know
I
that.
forgot about that. Yeah, that's interesting. I never put 2 and 2 together around that time period of like, okay, when Caitlyn Jenner transitioned, a lot of TV shows tried depicting it. It's like what TV's doing now with COVID. It's like because of COVID, a lot of TV shows are having COVID plot lines.
And I think that kind of goes back to culture defining womanhood, I guess, instead of letting the Bible define womanhood. I think culture is, or like TV shows are trying to be relevant. So they're adding things that are big that is going on in the world, but that's not where we should get our idea for womanhood. That's not where we should get our idea for being a godly woman, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly why I would not label myself a feminist, because I very much agree with the Bible. It says men and women are equal. There is no Jew nor Greek, no male nor female. But I don't think that it is generally helpful anymore, especially to be using the label feminist, because it does mean all these other things. It does mean you're pro-abortion. People are going to, if you say I'm a feminist, a lot of the times, if you don't caveat that, people are going to assume, what typical, what are we in, 3rd or 4th wave of feminism is now, and not like, oh, I just like voting and, getting paid the same and getting my job security because I won't get fired if I get pregnant.
Yeah, because I would say like we call it like on the show like the 21st century feminist. Like we're not that old. We're like the OG feminists. Like we just want equal opportunity for the most part.
Yeah, and I would say, so, I don't consider myself a feminist either. And I will say that I do have a lot of friends that are conservative and that do, that are Christian, that do, they always caveat, like one of my friends, she'll always go, I'm a pro-life feminist, because like you said, there's so much negativity surrounding the word. And I think that a lot of it, once again, has to go back to like what is happening in culture and how we are just like overcorrecting. And I like what you said about the Bible does say we're equal. There's no Jew, Gentile, there's no male or female. And I feel like this says one other thing. He does not say there's no male or female. He says, you said the verse. Can you say it again?
Yeah, it says it's no Jew nor Greek, no male nor female.
Oh, he does say no male, no female.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Bible does clarify that we are all equal. And I do think that we get caught up, like culture gets just caught up in the areas that we are not the same and overcorrects it once again. I think like having this conversation, I think our biggest problem is just overcorrection. And this overcorrection in everything. I'm even thinking like this has nothing to do with like being a woman, but like even like race stuff, like there was awful racism like in the 70s and further back in the 50s. And now we're like overcorrecting and being racist against, you know, white people. Like it's like all
and
of
you're
the
seeing
things.
that real quick, and you're like, that's actually something that's been proven in like South Africa when they got rid of the apartheid. It like flipped racism around.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's overcorrection. Okay, so sorry, shifting gears really quick. When you're thinking of biblical womanhood, what are some ways that we can walk in that? Like what are some things that we can do to make sure that we are sticking with the Bible when it comes to how we present ourselves, how we are interacting with people and things like that?
Sure. So obviously, I think the biggest thing is just obviously reading your Bible. You can't follow the Bible if you don't know it. So if you're reading your Bible, you're going to know what that looks like. But more specifically, I think Titus 2 is a really good place to start with because it talks about the older women teaching the younger women. And it says, you know, to love their husbands, to be keepers of the home. And that is just, I can actually pull it up just so I quote it correctly. Yes, Titus 2 verse 3 is older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good and to so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. So right there, I mean, obviously, you know, we, especially as like younger women, can be looking to the moms that are, you know, every generation above us, like, well, how do you be a Christian woman in your 30s? And how do you be a Christian woman in your 40s and 50s and 60s? And if you're involved in a church, you're going to be able to see what that looks like from godly women. And just by living life with them, getting to see, okay, well, this is how you are respectful to your husband and how you love your children and your husband.
So I have another question. So Titus 2, it's so funny that you say that because I don't know if it's where I've been seeing Titus 2 a lot, but which makes me think, okay, maybe God is like, hey, Mal, you need to hop on that, like get a mentor. So my question would be, how would we like approach a woman to kind of get, I guess, mentorship? Because I'm so awkward with that stuff. Like,
sure,
I don't even know how I make friends anymore. So yeah, how would we approach an older woman to help us?
So when I was in my earlier 20s, like maybe even late teen years, when I was an adult going to church by myself, but I wasn't like, like I'm still single, like I'm not married, didn't have a family. So sometimes there's that awkward, like, how do I get to know people kind of a thing. So the biggest piece of advice, and I'm taking it and it's really served me well, is that you just have to ask people to hang out. Like they, especially moms, a lot of the times are so busy on a Sunday morning. They're trying to keep all their kids together, make sure nobody's, you know, jumping off of the pews. They're just trying to keep everybody alive. And they'd love to hang out with you, but they're so busy that they're going to forget to ask. So what I wanted to learn how to can. And so there's a couple ladies at my church, and I was like, hey, when you're canning, can you tell me and I'll come help you? And then we just would spend the day together. And obviously you're going to just have conversations. So a lot of times just asking like, hey, you know how to make bread? Like, I really want to know how to do that. So I can do that for my house. Can you tell me when you're making bread and I'll come over and learn from you? And they'd love to do that. Like people love to share their skill. And even if it's just like, can I come over and hang out with your family one night? Like they want to do it. They just don't remember to ask because they're a lot of times trying to keep their head on.
Yeah. Wow. That's a really good idea. Cause that's a really good idea. Another question. I had one. Sorry, y'all. Give me 2 seconds. I had one. So we talked a little bit about, before we started recording, we talked a little bit about how there are some songs and some things out there in the culture currently that are, and they're, I was going to say, and I can't even say the word, but they're the exact opposite of how we should be conducting ourselves as women, not just in a hoity-toity, like, oh, I'm better than you, but in line with scripture, because at the end of the day, we go back to what the Bible says. How do we combat that? What should we be doing ourselves? And then if you have some ideas for if someone's listening and they have teenagers, maybe how to do that as well.
Sure. So I think obviously with all the music is like, part of it is just like not entertaining it. Like, you know, if it's on, like changing the channel, which sometimes is like just a weird habit to get into. Like,
yeah,
I know like sometimes it's like, well, it's just on, I'll leave it, but like changing it so it's like, no, this isn't appropriate behavior that I'm going to accept in my life. So I'm going to change the channel or whatever, skip the song on Spotify or whatever, or like, you know, you're going to take it out of things that you're involved in. And so it does draw a clear line, especially mentally for yourself, just saying like, that's not somewhere I'm going to go, because we don't like, nothing about like all of the popular radio songs is anything that you really want to touch. Like, you know, it's not being pure and submissive to your own husband, and like it's not honoring your father and mother. Like none of that is things that we want to be doing, especially as Christian women. We, you know, our goal is honoring the Lord. Like who cares if you miss out on knowing the popular songs, if doing that loses your soul.
That's a good point. That was a very good point.
And you said teenagers. That's yes. And I think part of it is with teenagers, moms, or at least, you know, I think something that I appreciated is, you know, the older women in the church that maybe weren't like so much older than me. Like when I remember when I was a teenager, I felt like girls that were like our age, like mid-20s, like I just thought they were so cool. Like, you know, if you like if you invite somebody over, that your kids could just like have them over for dinner, so your kids can see like, oh, this is what you like, your girls can see this is what 25 as a Christian looks like. This is how you be a single Christian woman well, you know. And as obviously if you're just doing that with people in your church, if you're having people over and they can see that, it's a natural example. And hopefully I think what we can do on our side of that too is reach out to those girls, like, you know, hang out with them. Do you want to go to coffee, or do you want to go do this thing with me? And because I mean, there's so much bad influence out there for teenagers that like an hour and a half of your time is no big deal if it really helps them grow in being comfortable in being a Christian. I think that was what was really hard for me, is that like I felt like kind of a party pooper. Like, you know, you're like, oh, I won't do all these things, and it's like you sound lame, you know, which obviously as you get to be an adult is like, well, who cares? Like, I don't care if I'm lame.
Yeah.
But when you're 15, like that's a really big deal. Like it feels very much like I'm never going to be normal. I'm never going to have friends because I am just the weird girl that, you know, doesn't listen to Cardi B or doesn't listen to whatever. And then, you know, if you have good examples of that on the other side.
Yeah, wow. That is a very good point too. And I think, so we have moms listening, and then also too, what she said, some of our audience is about mid-age. So I think us reaching out to younger girls, I've honestly been thinking about younger girls for a really long time. These past couple of weeks, like I've just really been thinking about, I mean, before the whole WAP thing was re-talked about, I was thinking about the youth before then, but in all seriousness, I was thinking about them just because, specifically girls, because that's what I am, and I love being a girl, and honestly, I just can't relate to teenage boys. They're weird.
Nor do we want to, really. Like I'm very happy to let the man handle that. Go right ahead.
Right. So I very much have been thinking about them, and what is really I guess been on my heart is just there are so many things going on in the world. They're getting so many messages. And I mean, I thought I had it bad in high school, but even in my little bubble, like I grew up sheltered, I've talked about this numerous times, but I just remember thinking I had it bad. But like, I'm just thinking now how much more difficult it would be to be a girl with social media. I mean, I had awful self-esteem. I can't imagine the self-esteem I would have now at like 15, everybody on Instagram. I mean, my little cousins looking at their Instagram. First of all, I make sure they don't follow me because that's so weird to me. I do not like, even though they're family, I just think it's weird when teenagers have Instagram. Like, I don't know, like 15 and younger. That's so strange to me. But anyway, when I do creep on their social media, it is so fascinating to me, like how things are very curated, how there's like a theme and they delete and this is that. So there's just so many things that young girls are being inundated with now. And I do think it is, I guess it would fall under the Titus 2 model of us to reach out and help them and to try to at least be an ear to talk to, because I'm sure it's isolating now, especially, you know, no offense to public school, but especially in public school, if you're alone and I mean, there's issues in private schools too, but you know, if you're alone in a lot of your beliefs, because like if my kid went to public school and there was like, oh, here's a letter, we're going to watch a movie about this girl transitioning or X, Y, and Z, I'd be the first one to sign my kid. No, they're going to they'll be the weird one sitting in another room. And I'm sure that would feel awkward if you were the kid. So yeah, that was like a long rant to be like, yeah, I agree with you. I really do think we need to.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point. I think with Titus 2 is like, you are always the older and the younger woman in the equation.
Yeah.
You are always somebody's older woman. And then, I mean, I always think like how funny that must be, like, but you never arrive, I don't think. Like, even the ladies that really seem like they have it together, they probably don't think they have it together as like we think they do, like watching them. So like, even when you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s, like there's always somebody that's going to be a little bit ahead of you in the faith that's able to mentor you, even just at a friendship level. Maybe it's not an official, like we get together every week. And I think that sometimes is a little damaging, that we, like a lot of us that grew up in like the youth group culture of the early 2000s, like, you know, it has to be this official thing. And if it's not like very organized, it's not really mentorship. And it's like, yeah, but like some of the best conversations I've had is when I'm like elbow deep in apricots with somebody and we're like canning them. And it's like, well, here we are. So we're going to talk, you know, as we are doing something productive. And it's like, those are going to be the best things that you're going to just randomly come up upon, because they just come up in conversation. And it wasn't like we went out to coffee and sat down. Sometimes that's just not doable for people.
Yes. Okay. You made such a good point. Because I mean, in my head, I was thinking, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to find someone to have coffee with. But no, you're right. It could just literally just be something super simple as, I don't know, what, like, I think my church, the women's group, are going to try to do crafting nights. So that could be considered, like, maybe I meet someone there who's really good at beading and we do beading together, just the two of us, something like that. Yeah, wow, you're right. That's the mentality. I'm over here thinking, okay, I have to figure out how to have a coffee date. All right, do I buy her coffee too? Like, I'm having all this stuff happening, but it doesn't have to be like that. So this has been great. We're gonna wrap it up. Victoria, I have one more question, but Victoria, do you have another question?
I don't think so. This has been a lot of me learning, because I'm a Christian for sure. Like, I don't think I would be doing this podcast if I wasn't.
That'd be awkward if you weren't.
It'd be so awkward. But it's definitely like been a lot, like very interesting to like learn. And like I knew this stuff, but it's just kind of like from a different perspective. So thanks for coming on, Hannah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so last-ish question, unless I think of something else while you answer this. Singleness as a young adult Christian woman, what are some tips, some advice, how to not feel so awful all the time? Some people might feel that way. I don't know. No, I'm just joking. That's low key for me too. So
yeah, asking for a friend.
Yeah, I'm asking for a friend. She may or may not be here with us.
Yeah, man, I wish I had a more like personal experience with that, because I am like, I've always been single. So, but I think, I mean, obviously part of it is just being content in the Lord. Like part of that is just, well, if you can't be content single, you won't be content married, is what I keep hearing. So like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, no matter what it is, obviously, like when you're a teenager, you're like, oh, when I'm in college, it'll be great. And so it's like, well, no, college has its own problems too. So that's like being single has its benefits and its disadvantages, just like being married, even though being married is a good thing. And like the Bible talks about that, it's a good thing to look forward to. But, you know, we obviously will always need to work on contentment, but that's a lame answer. Everyone just says, oh, be content. But obviously, I think, and knowing that it's okay to be sad, like about being single, like you don't have to be the girl that's like, I'm fine, I don't need a man. Like it's a good thing to want to get married and have kids. And knowing that, I think, is really comforting. Like, that it's not just like you need to fake it till you make it. Like, you can be like, you don't want to like lull in your sadness, but it's okay to be like, I would prefer my life to have a husband in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't know. I think part of it is obviously it's like just putting yourself out there. Like, I've met a lot of really great friends on different Reformed groups on the internet. So
yeah, I was gonna say, are you in Harmony?
I was for like 4 years, 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
We can talk about
so I was for a long time.
Okay. Are you in pub?
But-
Are you in pub?
Yeah, I've been in. I was in the pub before. That's how I heard about Reformed Harmony.
Okay.
But yeah, I think like just going to things like a lot, or like, so I'm a member of the OPC, so they have a lot of like things, like there's singles camping trips and singles retreats and whatever, and it's like those sound really awkward, but
Yeah,
like if you're able to go to them, like go, like you never know what the Lord's going to use. So like,
yeah,
and the old ladies at church, ask them, they always know people, and they would love
That's
to
the
set somebody
truth.
up.
Yeah, that's the truth. Old people love my mom.
They love it. That's their
if
dream.
Yeah, my mom, if she's not trying to set me and my brother, well, not my brother anymore, he's dating somebody, but if she's not trying to set me up, anybody she meets,
Yeah,
I know someone that will be great. Anybody.
So like coincidentally, they also breathe.
right, exactly. All right. Thank you so much for coming on here and talking, chatting with us about this. And I really hope this was a productive conversation for everyone listening. I hope that honestly, one of the biggest things I got out of this personally was the Titus 2 thing, because I mean, like I said, I keep hearing that, so I feel like that could be a sign from God that I probably should look more into that. But anyway, I really hope that you guys got something out of it. And also too, Hannah, do you care if people follow you on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, that's great. My Instagram is Hannah the Heretic, which I realize gives off an odd thing, but I am not a feminist, so I've gotten a bit of a reputation, so that's how that happened.
Love it. Okay, yeah, everybody, and we'll link it in the description and in the bio. Also, too, our summit is coming up. Please make sure you RSVP for our summit. We're going to have tons of really cool speakers. We have Carla from Culture of Life is going to be speaking, as well as we have, I'm trying to think of other like kind of bigger, Tony, the amazing pro-life activist lady, is going to be speaking, and a bunch of other people. So yeah, make sure you RSVP. And once again, Hannah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
All right, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.